Shalom, all praise to Yahweh Bahashim Yahushai. Double honor to the elders of GMS. Shalom to the brothers up there pushing the truth and truth sincerity. My name is Amna Allah. And today I want to do a show focusing on the book of Acts, the 20th chapter and 11th verse. There's a long story about why Paul's in the predicament that he's in this chapter and in this verse in particular, but I want to focus on something in this particular verse. Because if I was to explain all that, then, the show would be longer than I intended to, but I'm going to read Acts 20th chapter and 11th verse. Get straight to the point. Acts 28 and 11. And after 3 months we departed in a ship of Alexandria, which had wintered in the isle, and Paul was a prisoner on the ship, whose sign was Castor and Pollux. Let's look up Castor and Pollux. See what that's going into.
Strong's G 1359. Dioskuroi. Dioskuroi.
Dioskuroi. Which it tells you down here. It says Castor and Pollux were the twin sons of Jupiter and Leda, and were regarded as the tutelary divinities of sailors. That's the main point that we needed. So on this ship that Paul was a prisoner on, it had a sign of Castor and Pollux, who were the twin sons of Jupiter and Leda, Jupiter also known as Zeus, and were regarded as the tutelary divinities of sailors. In other words, they were regarded as guardians to sailors. Dioskuroi. You look up Dioskuroi in the online etymology dictionary. Let me zoom in. It says from Greek Dioskuroi, literally Zeus, boys. From Dios, genitive of Zeus. That's why when you go here, click on there.
Strong's G 2203. Zeus. Zeus.
It says Zeus, you see? So it says from Greek Dioskuroi, literally Zeus, boys. From Dios, genitive of Zeus. Kroi, plural of koros, meaning boys, sons. So it's Zeus boys or Zeus's boys, Zeus's sons. Okay, when you click on this, I'm sorry, let me go back real quick. It tells you right here it means maiden or girl.
Strong's G 2877. Karasion. Karasion.
But that's Karasion. That's Karasion. You know? Diaskuroi is Kroi is plural of koros, meaning boy or son. So Diaskuroi, Dios, genitive of Zeus. So Dios is Zeus, and Kroi is plural of koros, which means boy or son. So Dioskuros means Zeus's boys or Zeus's sons. Let's look a little more into it. This is Merriam-Webster dictionary. It says Diaskuri. The twins Castor and Pollux were reunited as stars in the sky by Zeus after Castor's death, and regarded as patrons of athletes and sailors. See, now you see why the ship had Castor and Pollux on it, because they was regarded as patrons and athletes, regarded as patrons of athletes and sailors. Let me go back real quick. See, tutelary divinities of sailors, as you just stated right here. So now you understand why the ship had that sign Castor and Pollux on it, because Castor and Pollux were in Greek mythology considered to be Zeus's sons, and they were considered to be patrons or guardians of athletes and sailors. That's why the ship that the Apostle Paul was on had the sign of Castor and Pollux on it. Go down. This is from Concise Encyclopedia. From Greek Dioskuroi, sons of Zeus. So it means Zeus' sons or sons of Zeus. Twin gods of ancient Greece and Rome, they aided shipwrecked sailors and accepted sacrifices for favorable winds. Castor was mortal and Pollux was immortal. When Castor was killed, Pollux disowned his immortality to join his brother. You understand why one was killed and one wasn't, or why one was mortal and the other one was not. The pair were excellent horsemen and was said to have participated in the hunting of the Caledonian boar, the voyage of the Argo, and the rescue of their sister Helen. Helen of Troy, that's a part of a Greek myth that was said to be their sister, who had been captured by Theseus. They were believed to have aided the Romans in an important battle early in their history, and a temple in their honor was built in the Roman Forum. Okay, let's go to the next web page. That was Merriam-Webster dictionary, Merriam-Webster.com. This is uh let's see. In fact, I'll read some of it. It says this is Wikipedia, as you can see. Castor and Pollux. In Greek and Roman mythology, Castor and Pollux, or Polydeuces, were twin brothers, together known as the Dioscuri, or sons of Zeus. Their mother was Leda, but Castor was the mortal son of Tyndareus, the king of Sparta, and Pollux the divine son of Zeus. That's why one was mortal and the other one was not. Castor was mortal, right? But Pollux was immortal because Pollux's father was Zeus, whereas Castor's father was Tyndareus, okay, the king of Sparta. In other words, a man, the no immortal man. This is Greek mythology. It says, and Pollux, the divine son of Zeus, who seduced Leda in the guise of a swan. Though accounts of their birth are varied, they are sometimes said to have been born from an egg, along with their twin sisters Helen of Troy and Clytemnestra. In Latin, the twins are also known as Gemini. Oh, see, Gemini or Castorus. When Castor was killed, Pollux asked Zeus to let him share his own mortality with his twin to keep them together. We'll get into why one was killed. Pollux asked Zeus to let him share his own immortality with his twin to keep them together, and they were transformed into the constellation Gemini. You see that? This is all in Greek mythology, of course. The pair was regarded. That shows you we ain't gonna get the full knowledge of 12 fruits mentioned in Revelations, the book of Revelation. I believe it's the 22nd chapter. Yeah, the 22nd chapter, if I'm not mistaken, until the kingdom. You know, the white men have messed it all up. It says when Castor was killed, Pollux asked Zeus to let him share his own mortality with his twin to keep them together, and they were transformed into the constellation Gemini. The pairs was regarded as the patrons of sailors, to whom they appeared as Saint Elmo's fire. Remember Saint Elmo's fire? It was said that that's what Columbus saw on his journey here to the New World, and were associated with horsemanship. They are sometimes called Tyndaridae, or Tyndarids, later seen as a reference to their father and stepfather Tyndareus. Let's see if we can get down here, see if we get a little more information. Birth and function. The best known story of the twins' birth is that Zeus disguised himself as a swan and seduced Leda. Thus, Leda's children are frequently said to have hatched from 2 eggs that she then produced. The Dioscuri, the Dioscuri can be recognized in vase paintings by the skull cap they wear. You see that? The skull cap they wear. The pylos, which was which was explained in antiquity as the remnants of the egg. See? See how it looks like a half-cut egg? Whether the children are thus mortal and which half immortal is not consistent among accounts. Nor is whether the twins hatched together from one egg. In some accounts, only Polydeuces was fathered by Zeus, while Leda and her husband Tyndareus conceived Castor. This explains why they were granted an alternate immortality. It is common belief that one will live among the gods while the other was among the dead. The figure of Tyndareus may have entered into their tradition to explain their archaic name, Tyndaridae, and Spartan inscriptions or in literature, Tyndaridae. So there's actual literature and inscriptions that mentions them. We'll see if we can find some about that in the show. In turn, occasioning incompatible accounts of their parentage. Um, Castor and Polydeuces are sometimes both mortal, sometimes both divine. One consistent point is that if only one of them is immortal, it is Polydeuces. In Homer's Iliad, Helen looks down. Let's see what that is. I believe that's a poem. It says the Iliad is an ancient Greek epic poem in dactylic hexameter, traditionally attributed to Homer. See, set during the Trojan War, the 10-year siege of Troy. Go back. Helen looks down from the walls of Troy and wonders why she does not see her brothers among the Essenes. I believe that's how you pronounce it. The narrator remarks that they both that they are both already dead and buried back in their homeland of Lacedaemon, thus thus suggesting that at least in some early traditions both were mortal. And Spartan was Jake, so that means they had to be Jake, you know. With all these Greek gods go, it was Jake that came up with all these false philosophies. Just look at the House of Consciousness, thus suggesting that at least in some early traditions both were mortal. Their death their death and shared immortality offered by Zeus was material of the lost Cypria, the epic cycle. The Dioscuri, y'all can check that out if y'all want. The Dioscuri, I just want to get through this information. The Dioscuri were regarded as helpers of mankind and held to be patrons of travelers and of sailors in particular. See that? Who invoked them to seek favorable winds. So sailors and travelers, they were considered Pollux and Castor, or Castor and Pollux were considered as patrons as guardians of travelers and of sailors in particular. Why? Because it said that they invoked them to seek favorable winds. So these travelers and these sailors would invoke guidance from and guardianship from Castor and Pollux so that they will receive favorable winds. It says their role as horsemen and boxers also led to them being regarded as the patrons of athletes in athletic contest. But back then the boxers was Jake. You know, you could have some Edomites that was up in there in the Olympics, but the best one was Jake, the Black Greeks. They characteristically intervened at the moment of crisis, aiding those who honored or trusted them. Now, this is another web page right here. Make this a little bit bigger. It's formerthings.com. See, this is supposed to be the woman Babylon, but it says formerthings.com Castor HTM. You can look up here, and it gives the scripture that I just read earlier. It says history. Castor and Pollux in classical mythology, twin heroes called the Dioscuri. Castor was the son of Leda and Tyndareus. Pollux the son of Leda and Zeus. You know what? Since I mentioned it often, since it was read a lot, I'll let y'all know who Leda was. Leda was. It says in Greek mythology, Leda was the daughter of the Aetolian king Thestius and wife of King Tyndareus of Sparta. Her myth gave rise to the popular motif in Renaissance and later art of Leda and the Swan, which the Swan was said to be Zeus. She was the mother of Helen of Troy, Clytemnestra, and Castor and Pollux. It says Leda was admired by Zeus, who seduced her in the guise of a swan. As a swan, Zeus fell into her arms for protection from a pursuing eagle. Their consummation